Thank you. I know the band always looks forward to August because they get to sing all the possibility songs. And so here we are. Thank you for choosing to be with this spiritual community today. We recognize you have a lot of choices in this virtual world, and we're delighted you decided to be here. Today we start a new month, a new topic, and a new book if you choose to read along with us. Do you remember back in March and April when we were crawling through the days and every single month seemed to be like a whole year long? Well, all of a sudden it's August. And I've even seen some very rude people talking about how many days are left in 2020. That's just rude. So this month's theme is about the possibility of connection. And this month's book is by Rosamund Stone Zander and Benjamin Zander, and it's called The Art of Possibility. I wrote about it in the newsletter. I put a link in the newsletter. I stumbled onto this book sometime in the recent past. I can't tell you exactly how. But the audiobook attracted me because I enjoy having stories read to me. And this was gorgeous because Benjamin, one of the co-authors, is the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic and the Boston Philharmonic Youth Orchestra. So he uses musical examples as illustrations for the different points that they make in the book. And you actually get to hear what he's describing instead of just imagining how it would sound. So if you're intrigued about this book, and I do recommend it, and you like audiobooks, please get the audio of it. Today's talk title, An Invitation to Possibility. How open can we be to possibility and connection when so much of our world seems like it's separate, distant, and even antagonistic at times? We get to create new ways of connecting and envision new ways of being together while still keeping a safe physical distance. And this is crazy making, right? We don't even have a way to frame this in our minds. I have a little bit of understanding about what an absolute challenge this is, and it's rooted in our biology and our history. Ever since pre-agricultural days, people gathered together in groups, especially during times of trouble and challenge. That's what our cultural memory tells us we should be doing. That's what all the social biases say. That's what all of our internal alarms tell us that we should be doing. Get inside the fort, get inside the castle, hide in the cave, circle the wagons, whatever it was, and barricade the door. What's inherently wrong in this point of view is that usually there has to be an other that's perceived as the invader or the attacker or the problem. And we usually picture them as different from us, somehow alien to us in some way, and unwelcome and unwanted. And we're pre-programmed to react this way because of our history. And now, in this most bizarre time of our culture, we are being called to modify our programming. And that's part of why this is so hard, because all of our biases tell us we have to get together and there's somebody bad out there. And in fact, getting together physically where we're breathing the same air is not exactly useful right this minute. So we've got this whole swirl of bad instructions, that we get to think of a new way, a new layer to put on top of those instructions that provide us with some new point of view in which to be able to engage and connect and interact that is safe and feels beneficial. Ever since Carl Sagan, who used to work for NASA, encouraged that first NASA engineer to point the Voyager 1 cameras back towards the Earth for that 1990 snapshot that we all know of our very own little pale blue dot. We have been encouraged to remember that we're only one human family living on one small blue dot. And we're not doing a very good job of it at the moment. So, Representative John Lewis, in his parting essay that was published in the New York Times on the day of his funeral, wrote to the nation, magnificent essay. And really, he wrote to the world about seeing a new way to be together. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's 5 minutes, but I've got a snippet of it. He wrote, "I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence, is the more excellent way. Now it's your turn to let freedom ring." When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters. Let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide. This is not a small challenge. And part of it, we have to overcome our old programming and come up with new ways to be together and to be unified without diminishing the value of any of us. Even the ones you may not like, even the ones we may not trust, even the ones we may not value. This is a substantial challenge, but it's not insurmountable. It's just a heavy lift. And to make it more fun, just because, why would we do it easy? We get to do this on several levels at once, in answer to several different challenges or opportunities at once. And we get to do it without the comfort of physically circling the wagons, our very own psychological safety net of gathering together in person. What an amazing and crazy time to be alive. I was reminded when I was working on this talk yesterday of a quote from an old Story People drawing. In my dream, let me try again. In my dream, the angel shrugged and said, "If we failed this time, it will be a failure of imagination." And then she placed the world gently in the palms of my hand. And so, without my intention, without my conscious awareness, this book, The Art of Possibility, is the perfect community book for us for this month. In the preface, they write, "Our premise is that many of the circumstances that seem to block us in our daily lives may only appear to do so based on the framework of assumptions we carry with us. Draw a different frame around the set of circumstances, and new pathways come to view. Find the right framework, and extraordinary accomplishment becomes an everyday experience." So how often do we say in religious science or science of mind, pick a different point of view and change what you see? What has to change in each of us for us to be willing and able to pick a different point of view? Mostly it's our assumptions, our preconceived notions, our perceptions, how we think it ought to be, what we're certain is true about a certain situation or certain people, or what we're absolutely convinced is true about ourselves. So how do we do that? How do we change our thinking and change our lives? Often this is a challenge because people want a more detailed roadmap. They want instructions. They want obvious steps to follow. In many ways, this month's community book study book offers us some workable steps. The first step is actually to truly believe it's possible to make a change. I can't really help you with your belief. You have to decide if you're willing to at least consider the possibility that it's possible. And that's true with absolutely everything. If you're firmly convinced that something's not possible, there is nothing I can do to change your mind. And even if I were to succeed at something that you considered impossible, you'd say I got lucky, or I was special, and it couldn't work for you. Because the law gives each of us what we truly believe. And if you don't believe it's possible, it can't work for you. Boy, is that a conundrum. One of the passages from the Science of Mind text that makes me giggle almost every time I read it is on page 52, paragraph 5. Some of you will know where I'm going with this. Holmes wrote, "If we believe it will not work, it really works by appearing not to work. When we believe it cannot and will not, then, according to principle, it does not. But when it does not, it still does, only according to our belief that it will not." So you have to decide to at least try, to at least test it out, to at least do the experiment, and consider the possibility that it could work before anything at all can happen. And the second step is to try it out. We have to decide that it's possible, and then we have to actually do something. Or, as I am prone to say, practice, practice, practice. Benjamin Z in the book tells a story about taking a cello lesson when he was 11 and his teacher was 83. He tried to play a difficult passage and failed. He tried again, and he tried again. And finally, after 3 whole tries, he was frustrated and he put down his bow. He was only 11, so we can cut him a little slack. But his teacher didn't. His teacher leaned over and whispered, "What? You've been practicing it for 3 whole minutes and you still can't play? What's wrong with you?" How many times do we give up when we've tried it once or twice or 3 times or 7? Because it's hard. So I looked up after that story about playing the cello to see how much Yo-Yo Ma, the famous cellist that most of us at least have heard of, if not have been enamored by his play. According to his website, he still practices 2,000 hours a year, every year, which averages out to 5.5 hours a day, 7 days a week. So think about that when you think about this is too hard. Think about that when I've tried it 6 times and it doesn't work. Regroup again, one more time. Or as they said when I was taking Spanish classes, which I probably should pick up again, repita, do it again. Also in the book, Rosamund, Benjamin's wife, tells a story about getting ready for a whitewater rafting trip. And she cannot figure out why the guide who's teaching them kept belaboring the point. If you fall out of the raft, it is very important that you pull your feet up so you don't get a foot caught in a rock that's submerged in the river. Remember, toes to nose. And then, Once you've got your toes up, look for the boat and reach for the oars and the rope. The guide said this so many times and had the people on the rafting trip repeat it after her so many times that Rosamund said it was well past ridiculous. She started wondering if the woman was in her right mind. And, as it goes, they get on the water. She gets bumped out of the raft by a wave and ends up underwater. She wrote, "Roiling about underwater, there was no up or down, neither water nor air nor land. There had never been a boat. There was no anywhere. There was nothing. Toes to nose." The words appeared from the void. I pulled together in a ball. Suddenly I was floating. Air, sounds. Look for the boat, look for the boat. Did that come from my head or was someone calling? The boat appeared, and then an oar. Reach for the oar. I did, and found myself hauled back in the boat on the water, traveling down the river. We practice these teachings and this philosophy so they become second nature to us, so that when things don't work out the way we want, we remember and we keep practicing. That's why we teach affirmations that are short and juicy, so that they will stick in our heads and be memorable, so that when stuff happens and we get pulled off course, when we get dumped off the boat, we can remember them and continue to work them. The art of possibility is arranged around 12 different practices. I won't be able to talk about all 12 on the Sundays in August, so I really do encourage you to explore them for yourself. I will talk about as many of them as possible. Each practice dovetails brilliantly with the Science of Mind teachings. The first practice, it's all invented. The way we describe what we see and interact with it determines how we see it. That defines what we can do with it. Do you know this? Have you heard it before? There's an example in the book. A shoe factory sends out 2 marketing scouts to an undeveloped region to study the prospects for expanding business. This is back in the days of telegrams. One sent back a telegram that says, "Situation hopeless, stop. No one wears shoes." The second one sent back a telegram triumphantly, "Glorious business opportunity, stop. They have no shoes." We all place limits on ourselves by what we believe is true. I'm sure you know people, no one in this room obviously, who are so stuck in their I can'ts that they really can't. And yet we do it to ourselves all the time, and only we can undo it. And what I do know is that, as Henry David Thoreau wrote all those many years ago in Walden, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet success unexpected in common hours. So there's a story. I decided in a moment of something 3 or 4 weeks ago. I've been thinking about it for months, but I finally jumped in. I decided to take a month-long class to learn to tell and write better stories. One of the videos we watched as part of this class last week was about a small town in Wales named Cardigan, like the jacket, like the sweaters. For the last 40 years of the 20th century, there was a factory in Cardigan that made 35,000 pairs of jeans per week for an English clothing company. But it closed in 2002 with the loss of 400 jobs, which was catastrophic for the town, when the company decided to buy their jeans overseas. Well, you know what happened to the town. It virtually collapsed, right? The major source of income disappeared. Or there was this married couple that was from there. They were both copywriters who had written advertisements for other people and had absolutely no manufacturing experience. But they decided, they intended that they were not willing for this town to disintegrate. And since the townspeople knew how to make jeans, they decided to open a jeans factory in 2012, hiring back some of the original staff and rethinking the process of manufacturing jeans. Because these were the experts. They had been doing it their whole lives and they knew how. And so they created a new way to make jeans, quality jeans. And the owners, the two owners, the couple that owned the company, were really, really clear. Their intention was to make quality jeans and reinvigorate their town. So they did, they started. They were keeping up with demand and doing well enough that they could hire back more and more of the original workers. Then in 2017, they got a special order from Buckingham Palace. And their sales took off. The jeans company continues to produce good product. Their sales continue to rise. The company has had to move back into the old factory because they couldn't keep up with demand from their new location, and the town is coming back to life. It was a decision. It wasn't knowledge, it wasn't clear steps. It was a decision that they took, that this is what they felt called to do. The chapter, It's All Invented, ends with two questions. And they're important questions. The first one is, what assumption am I making that I'm not aware I'm making that gives me what I see? Notice that it's not asking, am I making assumptions? It's asking, what assumptions am I making? Because we are always making assumptions. And then, once you have a tentative answer to your question, you follow with the second question. What might I now invent that I haven't invented yet, that gives me new choices, that gives me other options, that gives me a new way of seeing and being and acting and engaging in the world? What might I do differently now, since I've seen I can pick a different reality? This is the creative space of possibility that our science of mind philosophy encourages us to explore when we remember that it's all invented. So yesterday, as I turned the page of the CSLT calendar for the year over to August, I saw a Holmes quote taken from the 365 Science of Mind. We're all chemists in the laboratory of the infinite. What then shall we create? I had to go looking for the source, if there was an additional source of that quote, and there was. It was from a series of lectures that Dr. Holmes gave at the Wilshire Ebel Theater in Los Angeles on Sunday mornings back in the 1920s, and it's printed on page 34 of Can We Talk to God? One of the two texts from the ongoing Power of Your Word class. So here we are. We are chemists in the laboratory of the infinite. What then shall we create? It's a good question. One we get to think about. How do we see our world differently? That we can create something that actually works better for us than what we have had in the past. I have a few sentences from page 33 of Can We Talk to God? Our fate is within our own minds. Destiny is but the objective manifestation of subjective mental states. Success and failure are not things of themselves. They are simply modes of expressing the original thing. Thoughts should be daily directed and consciously controlled. What then shall we create? How do we create the experience of connection when we're physically distanced? We're together here, right now, on Zoom. It's not the same, but we're still connected. We've also got 3 classes going right now, and the morning daily practice on Zoom. Yes, I know some people don't like it. It's not the same. And I could make up 100 stories about why that is. And absolutely nothing is served by me doing that. Nothing. So look around. If you notice somebody's not here and you have their phone number, give them a call. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know they matter to you. Connect with them. You don't even have to invite them to join you here next Sunday, but of course I would like it if you did. Or even better, if they're computer phobic, you can host a 40-minute Zoom call for free. You don't need a paid account to do that. Anybody can do that. Connect. We may not be able to physically touch, but there's nothing that keeps us from connecting and being together. Because as we know, it's not the body that's the thing. It's our physical, our mental connection, our spiritual connection, our way of emotionally connecting to each other, which we can do regardless of how we are in the same space or not. So how do we create more experiences of inclusion and belonging? I refer you back to those 2 questions from chapter 1. What assumption am I making that I'm not aware that gives me the experience? Let me try again. What assumption am I making that I'm not aware of that gives me what I see? And what might I now invent that I haven't yet invented that gives me other choices? Each one of us gets to decide the kind of world we wish to live in and think thoughts, feel emotions, and take steps to move in that direction. This is hard. None of us expected this would go on so long, or that it's likely to go on for a while yet. And I know some of you have seen the post, the email from Reverend Nita at Unity of Peace. They've decided to let their lease go. They're not closing, but their lease was a very expensive thing they weren't able to use, and they could break their lease. They're meeting online virtually like us, but they've given up this thing, this physical presence, which was really, really hard, and I think was the right answer for them. We each get to think about how we connect and what's important to us and what adds value. Man, that's a hard question. And we need to invent new ways that we haven't invented yet that give us new choices. So I want to close with a little piece from yesterday's daily reading from the daily practice. It was 365 Days of Richer Living, page 214 if you happen to have it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'll just read a piece. The headline was, I am cause, not effect in my world. The words, no longer am I acted upon by my world. I now am cause to my world. I act in mind, and my world reacts in matter, in direct response to my demand. I am cause, not effect. I am spirit releasing itself into form under freedom. With my new sense of spiritual responsibility, I create in my experience blessings for myself and good for others. Having taken my stand as the cause of my own experience, I now create the unique, the unusual, and the different in my world. God's ideas are always new ideas. They never repeat. With my consciousness acting in its true place in the divine mind, all things are made fresh and new in my world. Old patterns of routine and monotony are demolished, and a new mental structure of flexibility and ease is mine. I let go of the past with joy. And then I would add, I move into the future with joy and anticipation of the experience of more and more good. So figure out how you've limited your own awareness of the world by your assumptions, and let go of anything that doesn't work for you, and invent a new reality for yourself. Invent a new reality for your world that blesses you and blesses everyone. Thank you very much. So I want to move into the community prayer. You guys know how this works. I'll say the words. You hold whatever image you have of that greater yet to be that you see as possible for you, possible for us all. Hold that thought. Let it fill you up and feel it completely, all the emotions, all the uplift while I speak the words. I bless this thing called life. I bless this awareness of this one mind, this one life, this one holy presence that lives, moves, and has its being in all creation. And I know it also lives, moves, and has its being in me and in these beloveds on this call, and in anyone who may see these words at a future time. There is only one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. We say this every week. And I believe in the bottom of my heart that this is absolutely true. I live in a perfect life. I live in a perfect world. And each beloved in the world does too. So I take a breath and I allow that to be so. And I relax into the knowing that it is so when we allow it to be. So I bless that awareness. I bless that opportunity to remember. I bless that opportunity to experience and know and remember and expand and explore and express and discover and invent. Because I know each individual as massively creative, inventive, at all times and in all ways. What a great gift this thing called life is. I delight in living it. I delight in sharing it. I delight in being in it with each one. In delight and ease, I release the past. I step into the future with joy, and I let it be. And so it is.
So it is.